Jai Prabhuji. Hello everybody and welcome to the Retroprogressive Yoga Institute. My name is Radha Devi and I am a monastic disciple of Prabhuji. Here in this institute with my spiritual brothers and sisters, we are exploring, deepening into the different writings, video conferences and books of Prabhuji. In our case, we are having the blessed opportunity to inquire into the book Kundalini Yoga, The Power is in You. Today is our third class on the series of classes of the Anahata Chakra, which is the fourth center. And some of the names that are also known regarding to this center are the chakra of the heart, or the chakra or the center of love. That's why in our previous classes this was the main topic of it. What is love? What is the definition of love? We are in our 25th class, so that means that we are in advanced stages of the course. To whoever is coming here for the first time, it is always recommended to go to the previous classes. If your interest is only in this specific center, then at least to watch the previous two. It's going to give you more context, more foundation in order to understand what we're going to be sharing about today. And if you're interested in the whole path of the Kundalini, then it's very recommended to go to the beginning of the classes to see the whole course, but even more than that, to get the physical book, because the classes, what we're sharing, cannot by any means replace what you're going to find in the book. I've explained in the past how many times we're taking just one sentence, and from one sentence we're building a whole class. Or sometimes we take a summary of a full chapter and then we come here and we share about it. We sometimes expand it from different scriptures or from other books from Prabhuji. So as I just said, these classes are not going to replace the value and all the things that you're going to find in the book itself. So it's, if you still don't have it, it's very recommended to get it. And the other thing about this book that I also mentioned a few times is the fact that it is a book that it's going to be a life companion in this process, in this path, as it's called, the path of the Kundalini Yoga, is something that for me, it became a life companion. It's something that I many times go back to understand this process of realizing what we are, like this path, this way that we're walking together. Okay, so today, during this occasion, what we're going to do is that we're going to deepening into the different properties related to this center. And at the end, what I want us to do is to read a part of one mantra in the Ishavasya Upanishad that is speaking even more it related to what we spoke in our previous class, that was the love in the master-disciple relationship. I feel that then in this mantra we can even deepen in more into what we shared last class, and we're going to leave it for our next class. Our next class we're going to be speaking about the symptoms, what happens when this center is balanced, when it's unbalanced. So I want us to deepen in what I'm going to read towards the end of the class in the next one. So now you have an overview of what are we going to be doing today. Starting by specifying, even though we already spoke about it, the location, the specific location of this center. And it is found in the center of the chest, at the height of the heart, but it is exactly inside the Sushumna Nadi. Remember that all the chakras are inside the Sushumna Nadi. The Sushumna Nadi is perforating all of them, and this is actually where the Kundalini is going to ascend. So this specific center, the Anahata, is connected to the cardiac plexus, and 12 nadis are originating from this center. Then the kshetram, that is this figure, this yantra that is representing the center that we saw in our first class, and I'm going to show you some images now too, is in the heart. And always remembering that this is the representation that we use in different practices in order to connect with the center. Like, it's not that's not the location. This is why we are specifying the location and also the kshetram for the center itself. I'm smiling because now we can speak about the meaning of this center. And the meaning of the name itself, the word Anahata, means without striking or without beating. And it's referring to the fact that every sound that we hear in the world is made by the contraction, not the contraction, by the collision, by the movement of two objects. And this one, it's going to be by the friction of two bodies, of two objects. So we see how the name of this one is without striking or without beating. It means that this sound is made without any collision of two objects. The heart itself is the one doing this sound, and this is already giving us so much information and so much insight in regards to what this center is about. Something else that we find in the book is that besides the actual physical heart that we all have, we have the heart of the universe, and it said that it's also located in our chest. And it's told here that we have our physical senses in order for us to listen to the heartbeats of this physical heart, but only those that are connected to that universal heart can perceive this beating. Like, there is the physical heart and the universal heart. For the physical heart, we have the different senses. If I touch my chest, most of the time I can actually feel the heartbeats. If I put my ear in the chest of someone, I can also feel it. This is through the senses, but then here is speaking about this universal heart that only those who are actually connected to it, and I think this is my humble understanding, that is when this center is actually open, when we reach this level of consciousness and these heights in the process of the Kundalini Yoga, then we can actually hear the beating of the universal heart. We find here what is also called the Anahata Nada, and it's referring to the primordial sound that is not created, as we mentioned earlier, by any physical phenomenon, but is the eternal sound that has no beginning and no end. Many times, and in different scripture, they also refer to the Shabda Brahman, to this original sound from where everything originates. So they are saying that the Anahata Nada, it's also referring to this specific sound, as we just mentioned, without any beginning and with no end. It's an eternal sound. There are different names to refer to this center, and we will see that they are related to its location, to the amount of nadis, to the name itself of this chakra. For example, one of them is Hrit Padma. I don't know if you remember that this Hrit, we saw Hridaya. I don't remember exactly in which class, but it means heart. So Padma, we already learned this word in many of our classes, means lotus. So Hrit Padma is going to be the lotus of the heart. And then in different scriptures, like in the tantric terminology, we are going to find this center also known by different names like Anahata Puri, which means the invincible city, Devadasa, which means the 12 ones, so this is referring to the amount of the nadis. We have Hrit Pankeruha, which means the lotus of the heart. And we have many other names. You can go to the book to see other names that are used to refer to this center in the tantric terminology. And then in the Vedas, we also find it referred as the Anahata chakra, as the Hridaya chakra. You heard earlier how we spoke about Hrit Padma, so then we can also find it as Hridaya chakra, which is the chakra of the heart, and also as Devadasara chakra, which means the 12 spooked chakra, also related to the amount of nadis that are originating from this center. Now I would like us to speak about the deities presiding this center, and the one that is presiding the fourth chakra is Isana Ruda. And it's said about this deity that he is the purifier and the embodiment of air. And the more we continue deepening into this class, you're going to continue understanding more about this deity that is the embodiment of air and why it's the one preceding this specific center. About Isana Rudra, we know that his nature is very peaceful and that he's highly benevolent. And he's going to be associated with internal wisdom and also this cosmic power. So earlier we spoke about a universal heartbeat, something that is located in our heart. And now we see how this deity is going to be related to this internal and cosmic power. I'm going to be showing now some pictures of him, because it says that the snakes that are entwined around his neck and the sacred Ganges flow from his braids. Then the goddess, or the Devi, that presides this center, the Shakti for this chakra, is Kakini. And in many scripture, it is said that this Shakti in this specific center is especially strong. Something that I was contemplating and reflecting is when reading in regards to this goddess, is the fact that she's going to, this is the first one that appears by itself. It seems as I mentioned since the first few classes, like this is another stage in this process. Remember that we have here this balance between the Shakti and Shiva, female and male, day and night. We saw with the two triangles, one going upward and the other one going downward. So here we have this balance. And also for the first time, as we said, it's especially strong, and it seems like she's appearing by itself, like it has her own presence in this specific center. And I want us to read from the Sat Chakra Nirupana, this very famous scripture that we shared about in many occasions, specifically related to the chakras. What we find, what Swami Purnanananda is going to tell us about Kakini. Here dwells Kakini, who is yellow like a new lightning bolt. Exhilarated and auspicious, she has 3 eyes and is the benefactress of all. She wears all kinds of ornaments, and her 4 hands carry a noose, a skull, make the sign of blessing, and make the sign that dispels fear. Her heart is softened by drinking nectar, and she wears a garland of skeleton. This verse is from the Sat Chakra Nirupana by Swami Purnananda. This is the number 24. So just by listening what Swami Purnananda has to say about Kakini, we can have a better view of how is she like. As I said, this strong presence. She has 3 eyes, 4 arms, and what the different signs she's doing that are going to be also representing this balance that we spoke about. We can continue understanding more about the element or the tattva of this center, and I'm almost sure that some of you can imagine, because by saying some of the qualities of the deities and from what we spoke in our previous classes, maybe you can tell that the element is air or vayu. And we said that it's lying in the chest and it's going to be a vehicle for the vital energy or prana. We had our different classes. There was a main class where we mentioned the prana, and then when we've been getting to know all the centers, we saw how there is a specific prana related to the center itself. But in this case, what we're seeing is that because the element of this center is air, then it's even, the prana here, it's even more related to the center. Like it has a more principal function. And I just wanted briefly to remind that when we saw the Pancha Pranas, the major pranas, we saw how here it's prana. We will see later that this is the actual vital energy of the center, but not this general prana, this vital energy that we always speak about, but this is the name of one of the types. We had prana, apana, and samana. Samana is the one that we share about in our previous center, which was the Manipura chakra. So in this area of the chest, we had prana, and it's going to be related to all the organs and very much related to the breathing, to the lungs, because it's located in this specific area. The main qualities of this element are going to be pressure, the lightness, the coolness, and also the dryness. And it's going to be expressed in a microcosmical level in our body, in the muscles, in the heartbeats, in the expansion and the contraction of the lungs, also in the nervous system activity, in the movements of the stomach, and the movement of the intestines. So you see it's air, and everything that the function of the air is assisting with, then these are going to be their main functions. This air is also going to be related to all type of movements in the universe. For example, the movements of the planets and in the stars. So we had the microcosmical level in our body, and in a macrocosmical level in the whole universe with the movement of the planets and the stars. Something else that we're going to see in regards to this element is the fact that the different types of vital energies of pranas that sustain our body are also considered a form of air, as I was just mentioning. So that air is going to be assisting all these different type of pranas that are running throughout our body. Something very curious that we find in this part of the book is the fact that the mind is activity. which is a product of prana. Like we've seen this connection. So it says here that then the relationship between the fourth center and the mind, it's going to be obvious. It's telling us here too that the air is going to represent this idea of expansion, because in this specific center, consciousness can expand infinitely. So we have the air, the relationship with all the pranas, the relationship with the vital energy, how the air is a vehicle of vital energy. And now we're speaking about this idea of expansion, and it's speaking about certain consciousness in this area that can expand infinitely. We spoke about different qualities that are in this specific center and how are going to be connected to this consciousness that we just heard about. And what I want us to make a small parenthesis here is in regards to the connection of this center with the mind. And there is a very famous verse that we find in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. It's in the 2nd chapter, which is speaking about the pranayama, and this is the 2nd verse. And I felt that it's giving us or telling us in very precise words about this connection between the breathing and the mind. And it says as follows: Chale vatam chalam chitam nishkale nishkalam bhavet yogi stanutam apanoti tato vayum nirodayet. Respiration being disturbed, the mind becomes disturbed. By restraining respiration, the yogi gets steadiness of mind. We spoke in many of our classes in regards to pranayama, and we're going to be dedicating in a more thorough way when we get to the 3rd section of the book, where we're going to be sharing in regards to prana. But what I wanted to say is in regards to this specific verse and the connection between the 4th center and the mind, specifically because of the breathing. And here it says in a very beautiful way how when the breathing is stable, then this is also stabilizing the mind. But when our breathing is in different patterns, then also the movement of the mind will be like this. I don't know if any of you had the experience of how our thoughts can influence our breathing. When we are anxious and we are thinking a lot, then also the movement of our breathing is very agitated. We have the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system, and we see how this is triggering different thoughts or different patterns in our breathing itself. So we see this very, very direct connection. So if our thoughts can influence our breathing, then our breathing can also influence our mind. And this is why we have all these exercises of breathing, how they are very connected to the mind, how we can influence our thoughts and our mind through the breathing. And this is why not in vain we heard a few times how in the practice of Kundalini we are usually beginning with exercises of pranayama, because it's going to give us a foundation in order for us to be able to stand in the intensity of all the practices that this path is going to bring us. Then the power that is going to be associated with this center is the control of this vital energy and the senses. And also there is the power to heal sick people, and soon we're going to understand more about it. that we're going to be speaking about the color of this center, of this chakra, which is green. And according to the psychology of color, this one is associated with nature and vegetation, and then from there arise multiple symbolisms and different meanings that are also going to vary depending on the country or the tradition. But in general, green is going to be related to growth, hope, wealth, good health, healing power that we just mentioned. This is the actual power of it. But in general, in one of the symbolisms of this color is healing. So we just saw it expressed in the power of the center. Another quality we can say that is related to this color is the calm, the serenity. And the connotation is usually going to be very positive, but certain shades of green, especially the ones that are related to black, so the darker the green is, then this is going to tend to have like a dark side. We have the positive side and we usually have the negative side. So then darker green shades are going to represent toxicity, poison, maybe also envy, immaturity, especially, for example, when we associate it with those animals like the frog or the snake that are sometimes poisonous animals. Then this is going to bring this relation also in regards to the green. Then in most Europe, this color is going to be a symbol of good luck, energy, rebirth, and nature, and it's also associated with Christmas in different Catholic countries like Ireland, or in Ireland it's also one of the countries that is celebrating the St. Patrick Day. We adopted this day, like it's also celebrated in the United States, and we see this symbol of the trevor, which is green, and the color of that specific day that it's going to represent good luck. It's also related to the green. Then for Muslims, the green is considered a sacred color because they associate it with the Prophet Muhammad, and it is also a symbol of strength, luck, and prestige. In China and in the rest of the East, it's going to imply hope and fertility, as well as virtue and good intentions. So we have kind of an overview of this meaning of the color, but when we're bringing this meaning, what we want to express is more about what this center is about, what are the qualities that are going to be related to this center, and we just saw here many things that we already mentioned in our previous classes and at the beginning also of this class. Then the color of the tattwa, it's going to be smoke. The color of the air, that was the tattwa of this center, is smoke color. The animal of the chakra, we see that the energetic movement, the animal is representing the prana in the center itself. And the energetic movement in this center is going to be symbolized by the antelope, whose traits are attentiveness and alertness. And this animal is also very fast, like the air. The plane or loka is the Mahar Loka, or the plane of equilibrium, which is the highest in the astral plane. We have different lokas in the astral plane, and this is going to be the highest in it. The subtle element or the tamatra of the center is sparsa, or touch, because the air is associated with the touch. Then the sensory organ, like the one that we're using in order to feel this element, is going to be the skin. And then the organ of action are the hands. this center, the Anahata, and the hands are going to be very, very connected, because they are going to express the giving and receiving that we spoke about in our first class. So since the sense of this chakra is the touch, then hugging is going to be one of its activities. And it says that the receptivity to being touched is going to come from a sensitive heart chakra. So we see this balance that we always speak in regards to giving and receiving, and we see why then the hands are going to be the organs of actions related to this center, because they are very much connected to this giving and receiving. Now we're going to speak about the gland that is related to this center, which is the supracardiac paraganglion, or the thymus. And in the past center, we saw how in the Muladhara we have the adrenal glands. Then in the Swadhisthana we have the sexual gonads, which are the testicles in men and the ovaries in women. And the last, in our previous center, we saw that for the Manipura, the pancreas was the gland, and it was related to all the digestive processes that are connected to the Manipura chakra. So here, according to its location, we have the thymus, which is located, it says that it's located just behind the sternum. And for me, what was curious is in regards to its name, because it's coming from the Greek word thymus, and they translated it as soul or heart. So now we're seeing this connection, the connection that this center has with this specific gland. And what we're going to see is the fact that in ancient times, different cultures, different traditions are indicating that this was the actual location of the soul. So the name comes from heart or soul, but in ancient times, they actually thought that the soul was located in that specific place where the thymus is located. This gland has a very essential role in relation to our immune system, as it's going to be producing the cells that are called the lymphocytes, which are responsible, among other functions, to combat different pathogens that can invade our body. And while I'm speaking about this, like I always remember how in my childhood, when they were performing a blood test and the white blood cell counts was very excessive, like I remember that this means that my body is fighting some type of disease or some type of infection. And what I see here once again is this connection, like this importance of the heart. And now we're speaking about the gland, like how it's so connected to our fighting system, like our immunology system, that it's the one that is fighting these pathogens and different organisms that can enter to our body. So not in vain, then we have this thymus that is creating all these lymphocytes that are going to fight with different infections, different very dangerous disease that I would like not to mention, but the health of this gland is going to be related to this fighting of the immunologic system. As I just mentioned when we were speaking about the air, we have that the cognitive organ, or the jnanendriya of this center, is the skin for touching, and then the organ of action, or the karmendriya, are going to be the hands for handling. And we always see how, according to the Kashmir Shaivism, it's another organ, and in this case are the genitals for the reproduction. Now I would like us to speak like to continue sharing in regards to different attributes, the specific energetic channel or nadi is going to be Varuna, and most of you probably already can guess the bio element or dosha, which is Vata, which is the airy element. And then we mentioned also earlier that the vital air or vayu, it's prana, and the sheath or kosha of this center is manomaya kosha, or the mental sheath. So here, once again, we see this connection with the mind when we are just expressing about the kosha, which is the mental sheath. Some of the gemstones that are related to this center are the celestine, the tiger's eye, the sodalite, the sapphire, the emerald, the malachite, also the green tourmaline, the watermelon tourmaline, the rose quartz, the jasper, the turquoise, and more. Then the fragrance is rose, and the aromatherapy oils are essence of roses or essence of bergamot, the lemon balm, the geranium, and also the clary sage. The planet that is related to the Anahata is Shukra or Venus. And then we have secondary chakras that are related to the Anahata, which are the Agni, Yavala, Anuchaya, and Vairavi. And these three secondary centers we find in the book that they are working together with all the minor chakras and the nadis that are connected to the Manipura chakra. And they are going to be responsible for the adequate flow of energy through the nadis, which is controlled by the Ida Nadi. There are other chakras that are related to this one that I'm not going to mention, but I do want to mention the Surya chakra, and I want to read specifically what we find in the book in regards to it. And it says, this is a secondary center that has 6 petals, and it is located just below Anahata chakra. Surya chakra is less active at night. As it hits the body, it allows for the activity of Agni Tattva or fire element in Manipura chakra. I wanted to read briefly this part of what we find in regards to the Surya chakra in the book. There is more. For the ones that are interested, you can read this section. But basically to also show this connection in regards to the Manipura and the heart chakra, this one, just by its name, is Surya. This is why we started saying that the activity is higher during the day. Surya is the sun, and the name it's coming from there, from the sun, and it's explained more in the book. But I also wanted to show this connection between both, as we saw also with the other nadis that are related to the other small chakras that are also related to this center. And to finalize, before reading this beautiful paragraph that we are going to share, I wanted also to speak in regards to the Ananda Kanda. Listen to the name Ananda. For me, Ananda, it's a very beautiful word. It means bliss. And we mentioned it in the past in regards to the different names of the divine Satchit Ananda. We saw it not long ago. I think it was in the first class where we were speaking in regards to the different levels of love. But then these names is going also to relate to this bliss. So it says that just below the Anahata chakra there is this minor center that it's called the Ananda Kanda, which is the root of bliss. This is how we can translate it. And at this center there is said that there is a celestial tree. In different scripture it is called the Kalpa Vriksha, which means wish fulfilling tree. And it says that this is Indra's heaven and it grants all wishes. I don't know if you remember Indra, we mentioned it in the past when we spoke in regards to different deities presiding other centers. So it is told in regards to it that, of course, this is a belief, and it's grabbed in many stories and different myths, different symbols, but it's going to represent a very great truth, which is that at the level of the Anahata chakra, one tends to receive what one wishes for. So one's wishes will tend to bear fruit if the sankalpa is the wish or resolve, is strong enough. So here we're speaking about the strength and the power that is stored in this specific center. It's already the fourth center. We had to open 3 before reaching to this. Something that is said in regards to this center is how much is related to our emotions, and we're going to see it reflected here in what we are just sharing in regards to this tree, this fulfilling wishes tree. And it says that this is also the place where many devotees, many sadhakas, aspirants, they're kind of saving the image of their Ishta Devata, their favorite deity. They save it in these locations, and it's going to be used for different practices of concentration that can lead to meditation. And this is why, because it says that in this specific location, then we have this wish fulfilling tree. So this wish fulfilling tree is going to apply both for positive and negative wishes. So therefore, the person that is at this level must be very careful not to make any negative resolve. Otherwise, there can be a very destructive and painful results. For example, it is possible that we can bring severe illness by just the mere thought, by this sankalpa, by this wish. But what we're going to see is that usually someone that reaches this level, it's going to be impossible for that person to have negative attitudes when they are already here. So there has to be obviously a degree of self-purification before raising to the level of the Anahata chakra. Otherwise, these negative thoughts or different ambitions could easily destroy and cause great harm. So this is speaking also in regards to the big responsibility that comes with the opening of the different centers. We saw in the first class in regards to the Anahata how only when we reach this level we can be called yogis. Before that, we're only aspirants. And only here we can call ourselves yogis. And it's speaking about this great power that has this center. And while I'm saying this, I'm just reminding this famous phrase about with power comes great responsibility. I think it's something like this. And yeah, it comes a lot of responsibility when we are already here. We see how our wishes tend to bear fruit, and we need to be careful with what we wish because we will probably get it. This is a center that it's very related to one-pointedness, and it's going to help us a lot in our process, in our development. But we also need to be truthful and understand what are the negative consequences that we can have. This is why we always are explaining the importance of the guidance of a spiritual master, of a realized guru, how it's very sophisticated, the intensity of the practice, and also how we always speak about this level of consciousness. Someone that already was able to open and reach the level of opening the fourth center is someone in very high states of consciousness, and therefore they will probably not have these negative thoughts, but just in case they are explaining what are the dangers of having them. And it's also reminding me how we always speak about symptoms. These are only symptoms of our level of consciousness, and also in regards to the Vishnu Granthi, this other lock that is located in this specific center, and we can understand more the why. So now I want to say goodbye by reading this beautiful paragraph that we find at the end of the mantra 8. It's the mantra number 8 of the Ishavasya, for the ones that didn't see the book. And in this specific mantra, they're speaking about cause and effect. I always like to bring the context as I usually share, so you can understand what we're going to be sharing. We try to find causes for everything that happens to us in life, and if we do not find them, we imagine them. We feel insecure if we fail to find the reasons for the events that happened to us. Believing ourselves responsible for the situations that we face, we look for the reasons for our supposed behavior. But it is impossible for us to identify the cause of love. I will say it in the purest style of Lao Tzu's Tao Te Ching. If you can identify the cause of love, you can be sure that it is not love. Love is invisible, and it only lets us perceive the consequences. Likewise, it is impossible to directly see spiritual awakening. We can only see the symptoms. The cause of enlightenment is unattainable. Some say God is love, and perhaps it is because neither have cause nor effect. The encounter between master and disciple is totally different from what we consider a relationship in the West. Relationships belong to the dual dimension. Cause and effect are part of a superficial relationship. Communion, on the other hand, is related to the spirit. Observing the master, we realize that something has happened to him or her, but we cannot say exactly what. The awareness and connection of what is happening in the master will produce a response within us. That response is not an effect, because the awakening of the master is not the cause of the disciple awakening. In the dimension of the soul, instead of cause and effect, there is simultaneous communion. Simultaneity can only take place with communion, and it manifests when you are synchronized with a phenomenon that inspires you, such as a sunset, the stars, a bird, or a smile. You become accessible and vulnerable to that phenomenon, and a response arises from deep within you. Thank you very much for joining us today. In our next class, we are going to discuss this beautiful paragraph that I just read, and we're also going to be deepening into the symptoms of balance and an unbalanced Anahata chakra. Jai Prabhuji.